Having a child whose behavior is out of control can be really scary as a parent. So today we're going to talk about some ideas that you can use to help you if you have a child whose behavior is out of control. So we're going to talk a little bit about what to do if you have a child whose behavior is out of control. Now, there are three foundational principles that we talk about on this channel, and those principles are accountability, choice, and control. And what those principles state is that each one of us are accountable for our life. We can't give that accountability away to anyone else, and no one can take it from us. Now, that doesn't mean that we're necessarily responsible for everything that happens to us in our life, but we are responsible for what we do in response to the things that happen to us. And that leads into the second foundational principle, which is choice. And what that says is that in any circumstance or situation, we always have a choice. And we have a choice about three things. And those three things are the things that we have control over. So we have a choice over our conscious thoughts. We have a choice over our emotions, and we have a choice over our behavior. Now, the next thing to remember to think about is that everything we do in life, we do for a reason. So there's nothing that we do for no reason. You may think that that's not the case, that there are many times in your life when you do things for no reason, but it isn't true. It's just that 90% of the time we're operating on autopilot, where it's the subconscious part of our brain that's driving our behavior. So we're not really consciously aware of what we're doing and why we're doing it. You know, that's why you can be driving in your car and you can miss your turnoff or miss going wherever it is that you're going because your mind is somewhere else and yet you're still driving the car. That's autopilot. So there are many things that we do in life that we've been conditioned to do because of the outcome that we experienced. When we get an outcome that works for us, we're more likely to repeat that behavior. If it doesn't work for us, then we're less likely to repeat the behavior. Well, those behaviors that are repeated over time become patterns. And again, because we're on autopilot most of the time, we're unaware of most of our beliefs and we're unaware of why we're doing the things that we're doing. We just think that that's the way we are, and that's the way life is. So what does this all have to do with a child whose behavior is out of control? Well, there's a reason that their behavior is out of control. And let me say, first of all, there is the possibility that there could be a medical reason connected to that. And so if you do have a child whose behavior is out of control, I would first say, make sure that you see a doctor and make sure that there isn't anything biological or physical that is causing that behavior in your child. Let's go back to those foundational principles. The one foundational principle is that of control. Is it possible for you to control that behavior? The truth to that is no, because we each have control over our own behavior. Now, if you have a young child and you are physically able to control their behavior, then yes, you can physically control that. But as soon as you let go of the physical control, again, they can behave in whatever way they want. In order to help a child gain control of their behavior, first of all, need to figure out, well, what is the goal of that behavior? It's important for you as a parent to look at your child and say, what would be a reason that they're behaving and doing the things that they're doing? Because I believe that the ultimate goal for all of us in our behavior is that we want to be happy. And so even when we're doing or participating in behaviors that are not benefiting us, there must be a short-term payoff or benefit, or the person wouldn't do it. If you have a child that behaves in a way and they have a fit or a temper tantrum or whatever it is, when everything settles, what's the outcome? So you want to look back at, well, what was going on when the behavior started up? And then after it's all done and resolved, what's the outcome here? What is it that the child may have gotten from that behavior? were they able to avoid something up front? So an example would be maybe they did something and they were going to be consequenced. So there was going to be some punishment or whatever for a choice that they made. Well, maybe when it's all settled, because of everything that we've gone through, we forget about what started the whole thing. And so they're able to avoid that consequence that they didn't want to experience. So as a way of avoiding. Another thing may be, well, maybe in the end, they get what they want. And so they've learned that when I act out or behave a certain way, then people give in to me and they give me what I want. Once you're able to identify what is the goal of the child's behavior, then you can look at, okay, well, how can we help them have that outcome or achieve that goal without going through this process that creates negative side effects for your child and for everybody else. The next thing that's important is it's really working on the relationship between you and your child so that you have more influence on them and their behavior. Because if the relationship is such that they don't trust you, they don't see you as being there to help them, then anything that you do, they're probably going to resist that. And so always working on the relationship, trying to improve the trust in the relationship. So if you can help your child to look at, okay, here's the pattern in your behavior. You're in a place where this is happening and you don't like that or you don't want that. And so the pattern is I do this and this gives me an outcome that in the short term seems to benefit me. But long term, look what it's doing to you and look what it's doing to our relationship. And if you can engage your child to come on board and say, yeah, I don't want that. I'd like to change this behavior. I'd like to have this outcome without having to go through all of this process. Now you're engaged and you're together on the same team working on solving the problem. So now the problem exists out here and we're unified in addressing or changing the problem, which is different than if the focus is on the child and their behavior, because oftentimes what that does is it creates more defensiveness because the child will feel like they're being attacked. They'll feel like maybe there's something wrong with them. So it isn't just the behavior, but because I'm behaving this way, then there must or there might be something wrong with me. And so they're therefore unwilling to look at the behavior, and so their defenses come up. So a few of the key points from this video. First of all, recognize that all behavior has meaning. Everything we do for a reason. So if your child is acting out and their behavior is out of control, there's a reason for that. Second, we are in control of our behavior. So if your child gets to a point in their life where truly their behavior is out of control, then we need to be able to step back earlier on in that process or that pattern of behavior, that we identify when we're moving in that direction so that we can intervene earlier on when they still are in control of their behavior and make a change here so that we never get to this point. To me, the most important part of this is to realize that your child is okay and there is a reason that they are doing what they're doing. The goal is because they want to be happy, but they have just learned patterns or behaviors over time that again work in the short term but not in the long term. So if as a parent you can change how you see your child, and instead of seeing them as a bad kid or somebody who's making bad choices, you can look at it and say, no, I've got a child that is unhappy, that is wanting to be happy and is doing what they know to get them that happiness. When your feelings and your beliefs about your child begin to change, they will pick up on that, and that will help in building that relationship so that you have more influence with them in their life and can help them make better choices that will give them the outcomes that they are really seeking for in their own life. Thanks for watching. Hopefully the information in today's video has been helpful to you with your child. Would love to hear your experiences of what's working and what's not working. And if you have questions, post those below as well. If you'd like to know more about who we are and what we do, make sure you subscribe to our channel, visit our website at principlebasedliving.com, And if you're watching this on LinkedIn, be sure and follow me here.